Well, hello, welcome. It's good to have you with us as we start on this journey of doing some podcasts linked to a new series at Grace Church Milton Keynes called The Healthy Christian. So I guess we're calling this the Healthy Christian Podcast, I guess.
Yeah,
Welcome, James. I'm Tim, here with my friend James, both leaders within the church. And yeah, really excited to have you with us. We don't know if there'll be three people listening or loads of people listening. Either way, we're going to have fun, and it's good to be talking about health, about being healthy Christians. James, good to be with you, mate. Good to spend some time with you. Give us a little bit of your heart for this series. Like, tell a bit of the story as to why we got to where we are right now.
thanks, Tim. I was thinking, hopefully, at least our wives will watch this.
That's safe for
Hopefully,
that.
uh, but no guarantee. Yeah, so I used a phrase in response to an email. I think it was yesterday,
Mm,
which was, "It's been a long time in the oven."
yeah.
So you and I have been talking about this since for over a year. I think we first mentioned probably 18 months ago, and the sense of okay, there's something here, but um, is it helpful? Is it biblical? Is it helpful? And what's God saying in all of that? I think the underlying or the central reason or driver for it is, there's so much stuff that's around right now in the culture, which is great about how to be healthy,
Yeah.
a lot of kind of common grace, whether that's our thinking, it's our physical health, it's our diet, it's our relationships, it's
Mhm.
money. There's like an expert everywhere, but I
Mm.
I haven't stumbled across very much in terms of, so what about for the Christian in terms of how the gospel affects and changes and transforms our lives?
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why, for example, this isn't called the Healthy Person sermon series.
Good.
So
Yeah.
it's not less than, it's more than what good habits and practices and things we can put into our lives that we can get from all around us. It's okay, how does the gospel transform our day-to-day lives in
Mm,
practical ways?
mm,
And that's, what we did yesterday, mental health, but also emotional health, social, relational, financial, physical, and then asking, okay, what if there's something going on with me that means I can't be healthy? What does that mean? I was, in us talking about it, I was kind of tying myself up in knots a little bit in terms of, well, what if this comes across as a long list of do's and don'ts for
yeah.
people who then just feel like, okay, so another thing I'm not living up
Yeah.
to.
More pressure.
Yeah, in a way that doesn't free people up in terms of shalom, what God wants for his people and his kingdom, but does the opposite. It ties people down. And so it's very much kind of, okay, what's the gospel flowing down into us, our identity, and out into our lives? What does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. Really good. Yeah, well, exciting to be looking at it. It's you said it very well yesterday. We're not experts. None of us speaking on this series are at all experts on the topic. It's worth saying if you found this on YouTube or something and you're not aware, this is a podcast following a sermon series. So we'll link to this. You can go and watch the preach. We won't be regurgitating too much of that or kind of recapping loads of what's said on the Sunday, but we're kind of following that message. And yeah, you said it very well yesterday. We're not trying to put ourselves forward as people who have much to say on loads of this. We probably do have lots to say because we've got plenty of thoughts and plenty of questions. But yeah, we're looking to see what does God's word say. I loved what you introduced about shalom, and I think this idea of it being like everything reconciled, a kind of
Yeah,
connectedness. So
yeah.
like we're looking at these different types of health: mental health, emotional health, physical health, spiritual health, relational health, financial health. Um, yeah, and that idea that shalom is a kind of joining together of like that, almost like a holistic health.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I'm just going to look at, I can't quite see if I can see um, the name of the author. It's going to bug me. I'm going to be really unprofessional. I'm going to go off camera for a
go
second. I'm
for it.
going to come back. Hold on.
Was this who you quoted?
Yeah. No, there's two things. So yesterday I talked about really helpful definition of shalom from Tim Keller from his book Generous Justice.
Hmm,
But there's I know I've forgotten the author's name. I have to go back. Hold on.
go for it. That's okay.
Henry Cloud. Yeah. So there's an author called Dr. Henry Cloud
Hmm,
who I've been really influenced by over the last few years, and he's got a book on integrity. And
Okay.
he's
Yeah.
dealing with that in terms of the real meaning of integrity, which is essentially that kind of that wholeness. If something's got integrity, it's well put together, it's whole, it's not fractured, there's no divisions in
Right.
it. And
Yes.
I was linking that to what Tim Keller said about shalom as well. So, which is this 3D version of life.
Mm.
And the other interesting thing about it is every dimension of life. And the other great thing about it is, of course, you can see it in the Lord's Prayer. Your kingdom come, your will be
Mm.
done on earth as it is in
Mm.
heaven. So this sense of drawing down heaven's ways of being and doing, which I haven't really heard
Love
that
that.
much of. I haven't
No.
thought about it that much in my own life, and yet I think there's something intuitively appealing about it, even in a broken world and even in brokenness in me. So it's not like this standard of perfection, but there is something about recognizing, I think, God's kingdom is one of flourishing, of health, of joy, of peace, of good relationships, of reconciliation, of
Mm.
forgiveness. Um, and there's scriptural references, aren't there, to eating and drinking.
Mm.
So I think it's okay to apply it in terms of our physical health and what we're putting into our bodies as well. That isn't the main emphasis.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's really good. I think that's so helpful. We'll remember that a lot, I think, as we go on, how these things knock into one another, link together, inform and help and speak into one another. Um, yeah, physical health is the one I'm kind of I can see how like spiritual health, mental health, emotional health, they all kind of I know how they do help physical health. I also
Yes.
recognize people
Yeah.
are you
Yeah.
can be spiritually healthy whilst being physically unhealthy.
Yeah.
So that'll be an
Yeah.
interesting one particularly.
Yeah, and what I didn't have time to get to yesterday was one of the things I would have talked about is you and I talked about this. The idea of the body keeps the score.
Mm,
So what our bodies are telling us about how we're living and how
yeah,
we're thinking. And
yeah,
so my own experience in the past, I've had periods of migraines.
yeah,
They're probably from in my family history, and so maybe genetic, but it may be something as well around the choices I'm making in my life, how overloaded is my life,
yeah.
and how that shows itself then. So I think there's a link there, and you can think of other stress related stuff as well. So ulcers,
Hmm.
skin conditions. It's not that everything,
IBS.
yeah, IBS exactly. It's not that everything is being triggered or coming from how we're living, what we're thinking. Some things are just biological, I think, again holding up the very much a non-expert card there,
Mm,
but we just know it intuitively, don't we? We're so connected. So
yeah,
what goes on in my mind affects my body. What I eat and how I sleep affects how I'm thinking the next
yeah,
day.
yeah,
Who I'm with,
yeah.
affects, am I making good choices or I'm
Mhm.
not? So yeah, I think you can do a great job on the physical health one, and I can't wait for it. But I'm kind of glad I'm not doing it.
Yeah, we know it, but we forget it. I would say,
Yeah,
I know it, but I forget it. So let's talk particularly then about mental health. I thought you did a fantastic job. I was just loving just all the encouragement that you shared yesterday. I was going to ask a really basic question. Um, Actually, on the topic of questions, we are receiving questions. Have I said this? I don't think we said
oh
this yet.
yeah, no.
We are actually giving the opportunity for people to ask questions as we go. You flashed up a QR code on the screen. As we send these out via our email chain, we'll
Yeah,
put a link through that onto a place people can ask questions. So we've had a few in around some of the other topics. We haven't actually had any on mental health, so we won't actually be addressing people's questions today. But just to encourage people listening in, do ask your questions, do
yeah.
engage. We will be reading them out, and they're anonymous, so no one will know who's asked what. So that means you can ask really difficult questions or really pokey questions. Um, but yeah, one of my kind of first questions to you, James, was what felt the most important as you were sharing? I don't know if that was in the moment or reflecting back. Like, was there anything that
Yeah,
really rose to the top in terms of
yeah.
mental health?
Yeah. So I've not done a great deal of reflection on that question. So I'll just go with my gut instinct. And
Yeah,
there's two things that jump out at me. The first one is in the moment yesterday, as I was preaching, the part that where I felt like the room got really quiet and then energy lifted, and what I was feeling in myself and quite emotional at that point was around condemnation
yeah, exactly. Me too.
and of how. Um, no matter how long I've been a Christian, or the good experience I've had in terms of I've got so much to be thankful for in terms of my family of origin,
Mm.
the life that I've had, the people I've got around me, people who invested in me, even in all of that. Um, you know, some people might talk about privilege, for example. Even in all of that, there's still struggles with condemnation. And so yesterday, I felt like that was connecting, and I felt like there was truth for all of us still to live and not only apply but enjoy.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of as I was preparing, the thing that I just kept being staggered by was, God's design, that it's through our thinking that we're transformed. So my experience would
Mm.
be, there's moments when in my relationship with God in my life where I feel like the Holy Spirit has done something instantly in me. It could be in a moment of worship, it could be in a relationship, it could be because I've been praying about something and there's been a definite change. But and that's right. I think you can demonstrate it's biblical, and many of us will talk about that in our experiences. But
Mm.
there's something about ongoing change. If we weren't Christians, we'd talk about character formation, perhaps development, growth, um, and mindsets. But in terms of biblical words, we probably talk about sanctification
Mhm.
and the fruit that we're
Mm.
seeing in our lives and our character. But my understanding is the emotional part of that is really important. But the primary tool that God is using is our thinking.
Mm.
And the more I thought about that, just thought that was amazing, because we're
Yeah.
made in His image, so we're different to the rest of creation. We have the ability to think. We are self-aware. We can communicate, and our lives flow out of how we think, whether
Mhm.
that's limiting beliefs or it's some people have like crazily unrealistic thoughts and beliefs.
Yeah. Like
And so
delusions. Yeah.
that's discussed about, to think about. But, you know, I think the Bible is claiming that actually this is the right way to think. If you want to flourish in your life, if you want to be healthy, um, God knows how to do it because He made us and He designed us. And what's interesting is in terms of common grace, so many things. My mum was saying to me this a week or so ago, so many things that she's hearing or seeing, the latest take on health or mental health or relationships or whatever, she will trace back to a biblical principle. And
Wow.
I think that's really common. So what we're saying as Christians is, yeah, you're hitting on something there, but don't you want to know the author, the
Yeah.
designer behind that?
That's right.
And so that was really kind of jumping out at me as I was preparing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love a quote by I was going to recommend the book actually in this podcast. So I'll flash it up now. There's Winning the War in Your
Mm,
Mind, Craig Groeschel,
mm,
which I think you've read as well.
yeah,
But he says in there, your life is always leading in the direction of your strongest thoughts.
yeah,
So same thing as what you're saying, like kind of everything flows out of that place. I'll touch on when we talk about emotional health, how much these are linked to one another, and emotions
yes,
affect our thinking
yeah,
affects our emotions. So we know the connectedness. But I think that's so true. Yeah, our
mm,
life is heading in the direction of our strongest thoughts.
mm,
Um, yeah, the condemnation thing, you're absolutely right. It was beautiful in the room. It linked to identity
mm,
for me, and grace.
yes,
Yeah, and you said I could preach for hours, and I was like, do it, go on, keep going. Um, but how we receive God's grace, how we
yeah,
preach, allow grace to be preached to ourselves, how we
yeah,
stand in that identity, new creations, no longer under condemnation. You touched on three quick illustrations like acid corrodes, a cloud blocks the sun,
yeah,
um, a dripping tap.
different
Just,
tap, yeah,
yeah. I thought that was, man, we need to hear that. And that's, if we get grace and this idea of there's no condemnation, we're new creations, the,
yes,
the impact on our mental health is
yes,
huge.
yeah, yeah. Thanks for saying that, because it reminds me the other thing that we only have, maybe when revival comes, we'll have 2 hour sermons, but in the meantime, we've got our window. Yeah, my sons wouldn't be keen on
Hmm.
that. Where I didn't have time for, and I'd made a
Yeah.
choice not to go, was around shame. So you and I talked about identity and
Yes.
shame, and so I think there's the link. There's a link there. But I was looking up some things this morning, and I would say that so shame is, um, uh, yeah. So guilt tells us we've done something wrong. Shame tells us we ourselves are wrong.
Yeah.
It therefore attacks our identity,
Yeah.
which leads to worthlessness.
Yeah.
And shame means
Unworthy.
we
Yeah.
hide. And the lovely, lovely things, thinking about, so how does the gospel address this in terms of what Jesus has done? How does it get, and the verse from Hebrews, looked at Hebrews 12:2, Jesus, for the joy of the cross that was set before him,
Mm.
endured the cross, despising the shame,
Yeah.
and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. So the thing there is, uh, Jesus despised shame. He shamed shame.
Ah,
So he wasn't limited or
wow.
controlled by it. And then
Mm.
for us, trying to live that out in a church family situation in which we develop trusted relationships where people really know us and love us and accept us. So there's this the spiritual, what God has done coming into our lives and us living that out through our relationships. And we find that hard. It's not like, okay, that's just really easy then, because it's about who we connect with, it's about who we can trust, it's about broken people connecting with broken people. So it's not like, oh yeah, that's really easy. But I would have gone there if I had more time, I think.
Mm. Yeah.
What jumped out at you, and what are the things that maybe you would have developed, and would have wanted to emphasize? Because obviously, with your the training that you've done in terms of counseling, thinking about
Mm.
psychology and thinking about how people are helped and supported and changed, there's a whole like body of things there that are really relevant to this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm holding my not an expert card up here. I think the proactive and reactive was super helpful. Um, Replacing lies with truth. Um, yeah, I mean, I could talk now for a long time, so thank you for asking that question. I thought just i- if I am more proactive, it kind of helps in my reactive
Yeah,
like that, and both are really helpful. But I was thinking about how essential it is that I am filling my mind and my life with truth, God's truth,
yeah,
because of that war on our minds. Because we, well, you said something about I every morning I tell myself I
yeah,
preach to myself because every evening I forget. I was like,
yeah, yeah,
yes, me too.
yeah,
So that idea of like good habits and
yeah,
patterns and means of grace that
yeah.
help us in those kind of proactive ways. Have you? I love the illustration of like ruts in a field.
Mm,
Imagine a car driving through a muddy field
yeah,
and it kind of forms these ruts to the
yes,
point where you just take your hands off the steering wheel, it will go in that direction it has always been.
yeah,
But actually, it is possible to form new ruts. Take some
yeah,
intentionality, take some
yeah,
time, take some repetition.
yeah,
But after a while, you can take the car in a new direction to the point where that's now your norm. That's now you
yeah,
take your hands off the steering wheel, you go that way.
yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah,
and there's like neuroscience to this. I think there's
yeah,
a
yeah,
little phrase of like the neurons that fire together
yeah,
wire together.
yeah.
Yeah, such a good phrase. And so there's something there's like more depth there for
Mm,
me to explore, and for I'd encourage all of us just to think, okay, how am I rewiring my mind in God's grace
mm,
so that I learn to replace those lies with truth. It's a
yes,
proactive thing
yeah.
that will help me in the reactive. Um, yeah, so just kind of putting in a new groove, a new rut.
That's so helpful because I think that would be something that Christians would have always held on to. God can help us change our thinking. We can renew our minds, regardless of our age. But neuroscience is showing, I think, doesn't matter how old you are, you can learn a new language,
Yeah,
or learn an instrument, and or change your ways of thinking. I
yeah,
haven't heard that analogy, which is fantastic. The one I've heard is imagine a field of long grass,
mm,
and you walk through it, and the grass gets trampled, but then it kind of stands back up again after a little while. But if you walk across that field twice a day, back and forth, you really create a path.
yeah,
And similar kind of idea to the ruts that the car's driving in.
yeah. Yeah, so I think there is something of like our brains kind of automatically go down a path,
Yes. Yeah.
metaphorically in our
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah.
Um, And so actually, if we are knowing who Jesus is and knowing who God is and knowing what he says about who we are,
Yes.
and that is something we are training our brains in and rehearsing and repeating and soaking in. Um, yeah, I think that's yeah,
You and
so
I have
helpful.
talked before about there's an organizational development or support company called Niche, and they
Mm,
framed it in terms of racket. So there's things
yeah,
going along around in our minds like a racket. You
yeah,
know, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, or I'm that, I'm that, I'm that, and those things without us realizing can bring us down or lift us up. They can govern some behavior. I think it's a similar idea. There's like stories we can tell ourselves sometimes from when we're children. And you know, is it possible to change them? Well, I believe it is.
I think it is. I think there's good evidence to say it is. I think you know, uh, I will encourage when next week I'll talk about things like journaling as a way of kind of
Yes,
processing and expressing emotions, but actually you're engaging your mind and you're
yes,
thinking, and it's that kind of joined upness
yeah,
again
yeah,
of
yeah,
like, actually, am I standing on truth? Am I
yeah,
building my life on what God says
yeah,
and
yeah,
his perspective? And
yeah,
it's that kind of double whammy of thoughts and feelings, which then
yes,
spill out into behavior.
yeah,
Yeah, so most people would have heard of cognitive behavioral therapy,
mm,
and I use it a little bit. It's a way of sort of jumping in either to feelings or thoughts. You can go
mm,
and you can go into behaviors either. There's a kind of cycle of
yeah,
thoughts, feelings, behaviors. And you jump in anywhere, and they link to one another. But so there's a little exercise that I think find really helpful, like putting your thoughts on trial. You kind
mm,
of imagine yourself in a courtroom, and you're both the
yeah,
you're kind of both lawyers, both sides of the argument. Defense, and what's the other one? Prosecution and defense.
prosecution.
Yeah, and you're like, you just kind of pause. You put that thought, whatever that thought is. Let's say, I'm all alone.
Mm,
I'm all alone,
mm,
and like no one loves me or something. Which is
yes,
that sounds trivial, but actually it's the thought I feel sometimes,
yeah,
and feeling thought. You know what I mean? But that
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you can live with something like that, can't you? And
yeah,
you put that thought on trial, pause it, look at, well, actually, I'm struggling in relationships right now. You might add some thoughts to the prosecution, but then into the defense, you might add something of, Jesus says, "I'm with you always."
absolutely.
So yeah, some
That's really helpful. And you reminded me of, and you'll know more about this. So, is it true? I think it's true that if we can name our and describe our feelings and or thoughts, it's a key to being able to not move past them, but not be controlled by them. And of course, you need to be able to do that if you're going to do that kind of courtroom thing as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And how often are we not fully able to articulate and name
Yes,
either our thoughts or feelings?
yes.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. And
yeah, so
journaling really helps with that. So there's a practice that I have. I know you do as well. And sometimes just sitting with that, as uncomfortable it may well be in silence, just seeing what comes up and being honest about that. Locking the journal away so no one else could read it. So then you
well,
don't
my
have to go.
handwriting's terrible, so no one would be able to read it anyway.
It's true. Mine's
It's
got
like
worse.
code.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean yeah, a journal that other people aren't going to read, and it's between you and Jesus, and so mine is a prayer journal. I'm
Mm,
putting them to it is getting these things out to God
yes.
and hearing back from Him too.
Yes.
Um,
Great.
what about when you can't react in a healthy way? So
Mm,
proactive reactive. That's my other thought. So if you
yeah.
don't, do you mind,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know, so sometimes for 100 different reasons, could be sort of learned behavior stuff, could be
Yeah.
trauma, could be just the heightened stress of the moment. We're not able to react as easily in an emotion in a kind of mentally healthy way.
Yes.
What's yeah, speak to that a little bit if you can.
Yeah.
Where does your
Yeah.
mind go with that?
Yeah, I haven't thought about that question really before. So what comes out of my mouth might just be like blah blah blah. Blah.
Go for it.
I think that so what's unique about a Christian response to that? So one thing my dad says is there's always grace,
Mm, yeah.
and I believe that not just in my head, but in terms of when I've messed up or I've done things or said things that are less than they should be, of
Yeah.
being able to experience grace and forgiveness, and that not defining me.
Mm.
So that kind of takes some of the jeopardy out of it for me. I think maybe by nature and by training, I'm in a place often where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the best that I can in this moment,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's all that I can do. So I don't hopefully over egg the situation, but that's hard sometimes for people. It would be my observation from talking to people, in terms of work settings or church settings. Um, I think that if we are able to adopt that more, then I think it gives us the potential, the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to think about it afterwards and look at what I could do differently.
Yeah.
And then if it's beyond
Reflective.
my power, how can I access support and help? And that's, I think, one of the important messages for us to say today as well, is that there are some things that struggles, history, past, pain, trauma, that we need others.
Yeah.
We just need others so much. And that might just be, like I talked about yesterday, someone who's going to listen, properly listen, and not
Yeah.
just wait for gaps in the conversation for them to say what they think.
It's so good you said that.
Um, or it might be we need professional support and help
Yeah.
because we don't have the tools we need. And it's really important to say that. And I love the way culture is going in some ways, which is there's less or no stigma about that any
Much
longer.
less.
It's
Much
just
less. Yeah.
being able to acknowledge stuff and say, okay, now where can I access help and support is brilliant. So those are things that come up for me. What about for you?
Yeah. On that, just on that last point, I think there's far less stigma. I still think it's an amazing act of courage for someone to reach out to
Yes.
either a
Yeah.
friend or a therapist or a GP and say, I need help. I'm not quite reacting, responding like I know I want to. So just
Mm-hmm.
of even that kind of reflective self-awareness of like, actually, I'd like this to be different. And
Yes.
then like doing something about it, I just think it's amazing.
Yeah.
I asked one of them, I've got a few therapist friends, and I
Mm.
told them about this series and this podcast. I said, what would you say, like almost like your headline? What advice would you give, or what have you seen? And one of them said, a friend called Charlotte, she said, I'd encourage people to get help earlier. She's
Mm.
like, so many people she works with, we work with, are like so in the weeds with this stuff.
Yeah.
Like actually like get help a bit earlier. And I think that help can look really different for different people. It doesn't have to be professional help,
Yes.
but like a friend,
Yeah.
within the church, our life
Yeah.
group. Like, I'm
Yeah.
struggling with my mental health at the moment. Can you pray with me?
Yes.
To sit and like talk to me about it. So I
Yeah.
just think like, one of the best things about our friendship is we're really real and honest,
Yeah.
and you don't have to put on a mask. You don't have to pretend.
Yeah.
Have, oh, how's your week been? You'll often say that's one of your classic James questions. And so, like for me, I've had to learn to be honest in that
Yeah.
answer. And it's not
Yeah.
always despair. Even if it's a hard week, you
Yeah.
can give both sides of the
Yeah.
coin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tough few days, but just grateful for X, Y, or Z. But yeah, so I think that that is massive, and I really hope people listening in and listening to you yesterday would have heard that, and praying that there's courage and conviction to say, yeah, I don't have to pretend everything's okay. I don't have to pretend that I'm the kind of the one who's got it all together. None of us
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
got these things sorted.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I can't remember what else we're talking about, but that one feels massive. So I very
Yeah.
much hope that's an outcome.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
me too. And I guess we've been on in terms of trying to be intentional about church culture, that's been a real journey, so thinking about early value of, from brokenness to healing, and the need to be able to not hide
Hmm.
our brokenness in an appropriate way,
Hmm.
just being
That's
honest
right.
rather than this mask and pretense that we all do at different times.
Yeah,
And then thinking right now of courage, I do think it really links to that, and
it
that
does.
and that takes time, and it's never easy, but I do think that's something that is becoming more part of our culture, which I think is really healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think just the quick one last thought on the kind of proactive reactive thing was for people to recognize when their kind of reactive is struggling.
Yes.
Um, you said that really well, and it made me think of a very basic illustration that one of my tutors gave me of like how your brain is made. This
Mm.
idea of like front brain,
Yeah.
and you kind of and she, colloquially or kind of this idea of like flip, we can all flip our lid, almost
Yeah.
our front brain comes offline, and then
Yes.
that kind of central part of our brain, which is all of our kind of
Yeah.
it's the kind of fight or flight stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the stuff where memories are as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just to recognize, okay, sometimes actually because of stress, because of trauma, because of whatever, actually, how do I help either, help myself kind of get past that kind of
Mm,
adrenaline rush and all those
mm.
kind of things that are firing around my body, kind of
Yes.
breathing, take
Yeah.
a pause, take a breath, and then almost um, how can I like reframe, rethink, and allow that kind of lid
Yeah.
to close again, as it were, allow that kind of mental health, that strength I do have,
Yeah.
to kind of
Yeah.
come back online. Um, and
Mm,
that's where different kind of practices can really help people. That's where the proactive kicks into the reactive. But I was
yeah.
thinking about that. I was thinking as you were
Yeah.
talking proactive, reactive. I was thinking, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
flip my lid sometimes, so to
Yeah.
speak. I get panicky, I get
Yeah.
kind of reactive, get angry, get whatever, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
almost like how do I help
Yeah.
those two connect?
It's really interesting. I was listening to someone this morning talking about how may have a thought, okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. Unless you feel you're okay, it's the feeling that's often taking uh, primacy. It's more at the forefront, and it's finding a way of doing what you described there of letting the different parts of the brain, I guess, calm down others. So we're accessing different parts of our thinking, our emotions. Where I didn't get to go to yesterday was, well, how did Jesus do it then?
Exactly. Great question. Yeah.
And obviously, they're limited examples of that. But if you just think about the range of Jesus's words and behaviors, I just some ones that come to the front of my head. He got angry.
Yeah.
He was very open about that anger, and clearly it was frightening anger, because to clear a temple with a bit of rope, people who are, I imagine hard-nosed merchants, and
Yeah.
he's fucking tables over.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm angry. That was just like, and it's not like Hulk mode smash, but it was certainly anger. So there's something there about him living out, accessing his emotions. There's so many examples of him basing who he is and was and how he acted on what God says. So, for example,
Yeah.
quoting Deuteronomy in response to temptations. I mean, how low must you be after 40 days, days and nights of fasting? I'm low after 40 minutes. So, how low, and where do you go to? And that, I mean, I guess fasting is stripping away, stripping away, stripping away. What's left? What's at your core? Okay, this is truth.
Mm.
This is who God says I am. This is who I am, and this is how I'm going to respond. What I go to initially, and so I think that would have been an amazing study to have done as well. I just didn't have the ability nor the time to do that, but that's maybe something for us all to think about as well.
That's such a good example. Like, yeah, Jesus' temptation, because there's proactive and reactive there. You
Yeah,
know, have you heard of Halt? Hungry, angry, lonely, tired are like
yeah,
key moments where you might think, oh, flip, why am I overreacting right
yeah,
now?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, I am hungry, or
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
feeling lonely, or I'm tired.
Yes,
I mean, we see that in small children, but it's still true in
yeah.
43-year-olds.
The big children. Yeah.
But so Jesus has spent time in Scripture. It was due to all. I think doesn't he quote from Deuteronomy every
Or
time?
Deuteronomy.
Or
Yeah.
Deuteronomy, which is like a tough one, tough read at times. Um, and so that the proactive then leads into his reactive, where he's able to respond to like temptation. We know how the story ends, so we're like, oh yeah, you can't have been that tempted. But I think the deal is he's really tempted. The
Yes,
temptation is real,
that's right.
and yet and he's
Yeah,
hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yet he's able to
yeah,
react,
yeah.
and it's mental health, isn't it?
Yes,
Linked to emotional health, linked
yeah,
to spiritual health. Shalom.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great example. One of my questions I'd written down was who in scripture demonstrates the best and worst mental health?
Oh, great question. I mean, I love Elijah. I just relate
Good
to
example.
Elijah. I think my
Both ends of the spectrum, right?
Celtic and Welsh roots, a bit of melodrama in there. I'm the only one left in Israel. And the Lord's like, actually, there's like 5,000 over here, but
Yeah,
okay, let's
do the
just move
maths,
past that.
Elijah. Yeah.
And I love the honesty of that. I love how I was listening to something this morning again. It talked about how, you know, in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus was with loud cries
Oh my
and
gosh.
anguish. And, you know, as Christians, we believe Jesus is God's son and his relationship with the Father was like no one else's. So it's not like he was thinking, the Father's not hearing me.
Hmm.
So there's something about the deep anguish he's feeling and expressing it in loud cries.
Yeah.
So obviously, David as well. The Psalms are my go-to all the time, and I've been a Christian for probably, I can't even think, yet at least
120
42 years.
years.
At least 42 years, I would say, if not longer. And yet I'm still feel like I'm getting new things and learning. God's speaking to me through the Psalms, different seasons of life, different circumstances, which is amazing. There's probably loads of others as well that I could, but those are the ones that come to mind. How about for you?
Yeah, I mean, I will speak on Sunday about Jesus and David, and it's the combination of kind of mental health, emotional health, thoughts and feelings. I was thinking about Saul
Mm,
and how he struggles with his
King
mental
Saul.
health. King Saul, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
thank you, yeah, King
Imposter
Saul,
syndrome, massively.
yeah, and you just feel, yeah, he misses truth, doesn't he, really quickly. Um, Yeah, I'd need to do more study on some, examples of poor mental health in
Yeah,
scripture.
yeah.
Um, but I love how the stories of Bible characters do kind of lead us in those directions to kind of
Jonah maybe feeling sorry for himself. This one plant that I had now is dead. God doesn't love me.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, really good to think and to spot it to, as we read scripture to spot what's going
Yeah,
on for different people.
yeah, yeah.
What was the Apostle Paul like in terms of mental health?
Wow.
Because
Yeah. I mean,
he wasn't full of, wasn't constant. The sense I get, the little I know, is it wasn't always a
yeah.
ray of sunshine.
No.
But he's going to scripture. He's a man of the word, and he is allowing God's truth to define what he thinks and then what he feels.
Interesting thing for me is so I would have a personal view that the Apostle Paul was a giant intellect
Yeah,
because the things that he
definitely.
wrote I think have shaped Western culture in amazing ways. Okay, so Ten Commandments and things based really influenced Western law in terms of how we administer justice and things. But the things that Paul wrote, I think, affecting culture and governance and decision making and art and just I think the whole gamut. I think and philosophy,
Mm.
and yet it does seem like he had some kind of emotional intelligence as well.
Yeah,
I need to speak, carefully. 'Cause I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I agree with you that he was clearly demanding. Falling out with Barnabas about can't think was it John Mark who we didn't take with them. So you get the picture like Barnabas is the people person, and Paul is a bit more the driver. Okay, there's goals here. We need to do this for God and these churches and these people to be reached. But I think his mental health would have been right up there in terms of resilience. If you think about shipwrecks, if you think about being imprisoned, if you think about being lashed, did you say that? How many lashes was it? Like the 39, 40 times,
yeah,
a number of times. So you imagine his back was just absolutely scarred. The workload, so he would be earning money, tent making, while also ministering. So it's a very driven person. So carrying workload for a long time. But you also you can see as well, he loved people and people loved him.
mm,
Some of his letters at the end, remember me to such and such,
yeah,
my dear son, my sister, my mother in the faith. So there's a deep affection in his relationships as well.
yeah. That's really good, and it reminds me of something. It was almost a mic drop what you said yesterday about purpose and
Mm,
how our purpose is, you know, how a sense of purpose links to good mental health. And I was like, yeah,
Yes.
when people are drifting and they
Yes.
don't really know why they're here or what they're doing, oh my
Yes.
gosh, how quick you can descend into depression and
Yes.
meaninglessness and
Yes.
drifting. And then, but if you've got a God-given sense of, yeah, this is why I'm here, and um, yeah, I think that makes a big difference too. And yeah, Paul had that in spades, right?
Yeah. 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 That's such a great thought. And I know for myself, if I feel useful, if I'm got something to focus on, I feel like it's meaningful. I got a different kind of energy.
Yeah,
A couple of other things that I didn't have a chance to say yesterday,
yeah,
just to throw in. So the place of silence.
yeah,
Our lives and world's so noisy, isn't it? So many distractions, and of course that stops us from thinking. So we use it as distraction. It can be scary for us to be alone and be silent in terms of what comes up in us, but how that can be really, I think, key and important. You see that in Jesus's life, getting
yeah.
away from people,
Yeah, what gift?
for
What gifts are there in silence? What does silence give you for your mental health?
yeah, yeah. For me, I've not thought that deeply about it, but I just will sit quietly, whether I'm just doing that or I'm trying to spend time with God, and a number of thoughts and feelings will immediately emerge.
Hmm,
So it's noticing those.
yeah,
And then there are questions around, okay, what am I, how am I sitting with that? Is there something that's telling me? Do I need to process that? Do I need to think about it more? Have I pushed something down that actually is important for me to recognize and perhaps act on? I feel I'm an introvert, so I feel my energy levels are often more restored um, through having time quietly,
mm,
and uh, it kind of makes me. I don't know if this is exactly right, but I think there's something about humbling as well. The world's getting on without you quite
yeah,
quite well enough.
yeah, yeah,
You're not like, I can't. I've got all these things on my list. I've got to do them. They're so important. How will the world keep going without me? It's just like, yeah, the world's getting on fine without you. So
yeah.
what about for you?
I was just thinking, so for in silence, I think it does sort of bring all the kind of twitchiness and kind of almost like addiction stuff in kind of,
Yeah,
lowercase a there for me, to the surface. And so I think you're right. I found it really helpful. At times I've done this. It's not an ongoing regular practice right now, but I've had seasons of trying to just take a short time at some point in the day. I found a sort of a prayer, like
yeah,
Thomas's prayer, my Lord and my God.
yeah,
That's really helped me, and it's brought focus again that Jesus is at the
mm,
center. So it's kind of like a centering, grounding, focusing thing that almost just allows things to settle again, and you can kind of rebuild from there. I love to do it more. I found when I have done it, I've had to build up.
okay,
Actually, you can get apps where you can set a
yeah,
minute timer or
yeah, yeah.
something, and just almost like learn and grow and build that muscle. I'd love to be doing that more.
Mm.
Last thoughts as we come into land, James?
I think, yeah, I was just something occurred to me now, which is it can be, I think for all of us, for different reasons, it can be quite scary to start to have these thoughts and ask these questions.
Mm,
Might be because we feel like we've tried to do things in the past, we tried to change, been disappointed. You just come through January, so New Year's resolutions maybe for a lot of us already fallen by the wayside. And it can feel there's a hopelessness about it. And so
mm,
one of the things I just would love us to end with and be reflecting on is, so it doesn't matter how many times I've failed, I've still got this hope because I get it from Jesus, not from myself. And
yeah,
the that just unshakable belief that he started working in me, he started something, and he's not going to finish it
that's right.
until it's finished. He's not
That's
going to.
right.
Oh, James is just too stupid. He's too stubborn.
Mm,
He's just James. And there's a hope that comes from that.
there is.
So it means I can fail in a day or in a week, and it doesn't mean that he's stopped working in me and changing me. So which is great because it means that it's not only me that's trying
That's
to
right.
work in me, and he's doing something. And he's better at it than I am.
Who's the
And
strong one?
so I
Yeah.
would love anyone who's feeling a little bit, okay, it's all great, it's all really happy and everything, but I've done this, and nothing's met. Well, yeah, unfortunately, it can be a real struggle, would be my experience. Um, but there's such hope. And again, maybe someone walking alongside you is better at seeing that than you are, because they can say, do you know what, a year ago, you would have done this, and this.
Yeah.
And yet you're doing something different now. Something's changing in you. And I can see it even if you can't.
Hmm. That's beautiful. There is hope. There is hope.
Yeah.
I think that's a great place to land, James. It's been good to have a conversation with you. Thank you to anyone and everyone who's been listening in. Reminder to check out the preach from James yesterday. We'll put a link into the YouTube description below. Please ask your questions. We
Yeah.
love to be kind of responding to what people are asking about in these podcasts. Share this with a friend if you want to. And we look forward to our next conversation next week. And this coming Sunday, we're looking at emotional health. And excited about that. So thanks, James. It's good to be with you today.
Great chat. Thanks, Tim.